Hello everyone. Tá fáilte ráta an ócáid starú seo aniu, launch all education equality. Feictar dún ar fad bhfuil bura ag teacht faoinachtas seo, faoinachtas cuchaimíochta seo agus is ionach sin. My name is Ronan. I'll be emceeing today. We're delighted to have with us today many allies, friends, Ivana. Owen is on his way. That's on his way. Owen's here. Owen, join us please. And most importantly, Ruben and Ethan. Hi Ruben.
Hey.
And Ethan. Some other younger Irish citizens, that's great to see that. Education equality is very much a citizens' initiative. The campaign was formed after a public meeting called by the Humanist Association of Ireland back in June. And since then, I think it's really gathered momentum. And somehow we've managed to capture some of the motivation that's out there for a change in our education system. Education equality is an independent campaign, the purpose of which is to achieve equality in education regardless of religion. I think the ultimate question is, why are we here? What's this all about? And the kind of informal answer is, the obvious reason is that we want a better education system. We want a society that's better educated, more literate, and fully equipped to deal with the challenges that we face, our shared challenges. I think that's the hard reason we're here, but there's also a more immeasurable reason, more softer reason, and that's, I think, the motivation that appeals to our hearts more than our heads. It's that idea of an Ireland that's achieving its potential. Sometimes that idea becomes tangible, like that feeling of pride when we get when Ireland does something right, like Dr. William Campbell, who got a Nobel Prize this week, or that report, remember that report that said Ireland was the goodest country in the world? Or that feeling after the marriage equality referendum. There's that kind of sense of joy, of belonging, and a sense of ownership over the direction of our country and of our community. I think that one of the challenges we face is kind of capturing and communicating that feeling in a way that brings other people with us. Today we're going to hear from April Duff, the Chairperson of Education Equality, Senator Ivana Bacik, Nicky Murphy, parent, campaigner, Dr. Owen Daly, and we'll have an open discussion and some Q&A at the end. So the exits are at the back. Don't turn your phone off. In fact, if you turn it off, turn it back on again, because we want you to please tweet. The hashtag is EdEquality, and the Wi-Fi is open so anybody can access it. So without further ado, we'll welcome April Duff, the Chairperson of Education Equality.
Distinguished guests, members of the Oireachtas, parents, children, ladies and gentlemen. It's a somewhat cliched way to begin a speech, but I have a dream. And we, this new organisation, Education Equality, we have a dream. We have a dream that one day in Ireland, little Catholic girls and little non-religious boys and children of all beliefs will be able to sit down together at the school desks that all our taxes pay for. We have a dream that all children will have equal access to their local primary school. And we have a dream that all children will be cherished equally and their beliefs equally respected during the school day, without a religion being imposed on them contrary to their parents' conscience. For the sake of those parents here today who are right now struggling to cope with a school system that discriminates against them, I fervently hope that that day will come soon. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that dream that has led to the formation of Education Equality, a grassroots human rights organisation dedicated solely to the goal of equality in the education system, not challenging any religion, but promoting equal respect for all the children of all beliefs in Ireland. I have huge faith that this new organisation can make a real and lasting impact in shaping our education system as a purely voluntary group of parents, future parents, academics, and other passionate individuals coming together to fight for equality for our own sakes and for the sake of future generations. Even before the launch today, our membership has grown to over 150 volunteer members, showing a huge appetite for a way for volunteers to join forces on this crucial issue. Now, usually when I speak about equality in the education system, the lawyer in me emerges and I go into an in-depth analysis of the case law that the courts have developed in this area. But today, with some effort, I'm going to restrain myself from doing so, because we are honoured by the presence of two people much better qualified than me to speak on the law in this area. Senator Ivana Bacek, as a professor in the Trinity Law School, has worked for many years to achieve greater equality and diversity in our education system. And it was the writings of Dr. Owen Daly, he doesn't know this, but it was his writings who informed a large part of my own research on equality in the education system when I began working on this area some time ago. So instead what I will do is introduce the factual context that has led to the founding of education equality and explain the essence of the twin goals that we have chosen to prioritise. For many of you who have been through the heartache of school rejections on the basis of religion, or who are struggling to shield your children from faith formation which conflicts with your beliefs, you need no introduction to this topic. But there are also many among us today who are quite new to the campaign for religious equality in the education system. So for you, and as a reminder for us all, I will explain what education equality is all about. When considering the relationship between religion and education, it is important to bear in mind the unique landscape of the Irish education system. Unlike most of our neighbours abroad, the Irish state does not directly run a system of state schools, but instead funds private bodies to provide primary education. Over 96% of our primary schools are run under the patronage of religious bodies. 90% are Roman Catholic. It's important to bear that context in mind when considering how our schools are run and should be run, because it means that for the vast majority of families, the only choice is to send their children to the local primary school, usually Catholic. Many of those schools adopt admissions policies that give preference to children belonging to the school's religion above all other children, regardless of the fact that a non-religious or minority religion child might live right across the road from that school. These so-called religious first policies mean that in areas where schools are in high demand, non-religious and minority religion parents find it next to impossible to find school places for their children. Nikki Murphy, one of the driving forces behind this organisation, will amply illustrate the ordeal that parents go through in this situation by telling us the story of her search for a school place for her son Ruben. Many parents are faced with an unacceptable dilemma. Do they baptise their child into a religion that conflicts with their own beliefs in order to get their child into a school? In the vast majority of cases, that simple piece of paper will put an end to their difficulties there and then. Yet the personal toll that action takes on a parent is enormous. Now, I said that I would not go into the legal technicalities, and I will keep to my word, but it does not take a lawyer to see that punishing parents for their religious beliefs by refusing their child access to a local school, a basic public good, is a direct and undeniable violation of the right to freedom of religion, a right that is guaranteed to every human being by virtue of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and by our own Constitution. Equally, a system that effectively forces a parent to enter their child into a religion that is against their wishes sets the right to freedom of religion at naught. It is clear that the only system of publicly funded schools we have must welcome every child equally and not make any discrimination on the grounds of religion. Religion is, after all, one of the prohibited grounds of discrimination in all of the main international human rights treaties and indeed in the Irish Equal Status Act. Paradoxically, that act contains an exemption from non-discrimination law for religious schools. I hereby call on all of our elected officials to prioritise the immediate removal of this section which allows religious discrimination in schools, and I give my undertaking that education equality will work as hard as we can to remove permission for state-funded schools to discriminate in this way. However, access is not the only problem that many minority religion and non-religious families encounter in our primary school system. Once inside the school, there is very rarely an effective choice available for parents as to whether their children attend religious instruction or faith formation. Parents typically report to us that children sit at the back of the class during religious periods and absorb the religious instruction just the same as any other subject. Rule 68 of the Rules for National Schools, which dates from 1965, requires that a religious spirit inform and vivify the entire work of the school day, making choice in relation to religious instruction practically impossible. Education Equality enthusiastically welcomes the announcement by the Minister for Education, Janice Sullivan, this Wednesday that she will remove Rule 68 next month. This comes as a very encouraging signal that our work and the hard work of other individuals and organisations in this area are beginning to pay off. While this is a very positive first step, I call on the Minister to follow this development with the further necessary measures to make equal respect for all children during the school day a reality. For there can surely be no greater violation of the right to freedom of religion than to have a religion imposed on you, contrary to your family's wishes, before you are old enough to distinguish what to believe from what not to believe. No child should be singled out, excluded, or made to feel inadequate because they do not share the religious beliefs of their classmates or their teachers. Education equality therefore calls for faith formation to be confined to a distinct period of time at the end of the school day and outside of core hours, so that the rights of those who don't share the school patron's religion are not violated. In the short time since Education Equality has begun organising, we have been contacted by an overwhelming number of parents telling us the stories of their struggles to find school places for their children or to opt out of religious instruction in a meaningful way, and seeking our help in doing so. Now, it heartens me to know that those people now have a place to go with their stories, and indeed an avenue and a way to contribute to the change they seek. Yet each of these stories serves as a saddening reminder of how much needs to be done in this area, and how much needs to be changed. In particular, it is a source of great pain to me to have to advise parents that the discrimination they're suffering is currently legal. While individual appeals to local schools can act as a catalyst for change, what is needed here is action by our national legislators to change the law. In many ways, 2015 has been a great year for human rights in Ireland. In May, we became the first country in the world to democratically vote in favour of finally recognising the right of same-sex couples to marry. 22 years ago, Lydia Foy first sought a new birth certificate to reflect her gender as a woman. 22 years after she did that, the Oireachtas passed one of the most progressive pieces of gender recognition legislation in Europe, finally enabling Lydia and other transgender people to be recognised by the state for who they truly are, and not for who the state says they ought to be. Ireland has always prided itself on its record under various international human rights treaties. Yet I have counted 6 separate occasions on which the various UN treaty monitoring bodies have condemned the lack of respect for freedom of religion and equality in Irish schools during Ireland's periodic review of Ireland's performance under the treaties. It is to be hoped that the Irish state will soon act on the UN treaty body's recommendations to remove religious discrimination in our state-funded education system. In the early days of this organisation, we added to the process of putting international pressure on the government to act by making a submission to the UN Human Rights Council. Our submission will form part of the Universal Periodic Review taking place in next May, when Ireland's performance under all of the UN international human rights treaties will be scrutinised. The periodic review process proved its effectiveness when the Justice for Magdalene's group used it in large part to secure a formal apology by the Irish state to Magdalene laundry survivors. We will continue to utilise the UN mechanisms to pressure the Irish government for equality in education. Since we began actively campaigning last month, we have also put pressure on our elected officials directly by lobbying all but one of the main political parties, TDs, senators, election candidates. We have highlighted the difficulties faced by our supporters in the school system, explained what needs to be done to achieve equality, and asked parties and candidates to prioritise equality in education in their election manifestos. We have engaged a pro bono legal team who are generously giving up their time to begin the process of challenging religious discrimination through the courts. We have supported and advised parents who are currently experiencing discrimination and who are often hugely upset and anxious about the treatment they have received in the education system. We have raised awareness of this form of discrimination, which remains completely unknown to a very large number of people, by presenting on the issue to elected officials at Leinster House, by speaking on the issue on radio and in the print media, representing the movement at public events, and through our very active social media channels. Public awareness raising will form a large part of our activity following our launch today, as we strive to generate political will to change and to end discrimination during the upcoming election. With that goal in mind, we have gathered and put together 30 personal stories from our members who were affected by this discrimination, eyewitness accounts of the disrespect encountered in our education system. We will release these stories, one a day, every day, for the next 30 days on our website and social media to open people's eyes to the real human effects of the discriminatory system. So I now ask each of you to do everything you can to circulate these stories, to share them on social media every day so that they reach the maximum possible number of people. Quite fittingly, today, day one of the 30 Days, 30 Stories initiative features Nikki Murphy, who will tell us her story personally in a moment. Nikki and her husband Clem's efforts to get a suitable school place for her son Reuben are nothing short of inspirational, and her dedication has driven me throughout the campaign so far. Many have argued that the current problem in the primary school system is simply a lack of school places. But the fact is that no matter how many more school places are created, children like Reuben will always be the last to get those places unless discrimination in the allocation of the places is ended. In the competition for school places in demand, no child must be disadvantaged on account of their parents' religion, just as preference on the basis of race or political associations would not be tolerated. There is no doubt that the current educational landscape, with 96% religious schools, does not reflect the diversity of modern Irish society. We undoubtedly need more multi-denominational and indeed non-denominational schools. But divesting some schools to non-religious patrons won't solve the problem for everyone. We would have to divest a school in every single townland in order to ensure that religious freedom of everyone is protected. Particularly in rural areas, it's not possible to have 2 schools in every area. So equal access and equal respect must be protected in all state-funded schools, regardless of patronage. In the end of the day, religious discrimination and infringements of the freedom of religion are inherently wrong. There is no excuse, and no alternative arrangement can take away from that fact. One of the reasons why divestment has been so slow coming is that the majority in Ireland belong to one religion. So the current system functions relatively well for the majority. But if we determine how our education system works, based on the majority's wishes, the rights of minorities will never be respected. This is a classic case of, to use the term popularised by John Stuart Mill, the tyranny of the majority. The very purpose of democratic constitutions and international human rights treaties is to protect the rights of minorities from being trampled by the majority. So it is with regret that I speak of the realisation of basic human rights and fundamental civil liberties in terms of a dream. But the sad reality is that freedom of religion, non-discrimination, and a reasonably accessible education remain a dream for many people in Ireland today. There is no doubt that it will be an uphill battle, but that dream will inform the work of education equality as we strive for equality in education, regardless of beliefs. In doing so, we have been inspired by the achievements of the marriage equality movement and of the transgender movement in our efforts so far. And so it is with pleasure, determination and great hope that I now launch Education Equality. Thank you.